Hello everyone, welcome to another Go opening video. Today I would like to present you a professional game between the Korean player Park Chung-hwa. By the way, I'm pretty sure that I spelled his name wrong, and I couldn't figure out what his English name is, so if you know what his English name is, please comment below the video. His opponent is Ding Hao 9P. I think he's not world champion, but he's been at least champion of, he's won a championship in China or something. So both players are 9P, so they're very strong. Black starts out with double 4-star with a small knight enclosure. White approaches, and black plays the Kosumi. White plays the 2-space extension. This is usually how white plays out after the Kosumi. So usually you don't want to play elsewhere, because if you play elsewhere, black is going to take the vital point. Not only expend black, but also this is putting a lot of pressure on white. So the 2-space extension is the AI recommended move. Black immediately takes another corner, so as we can tell, black is focusing on the territory. White blocks, black crawls, and the white extends. The next move, black decides to hop out. So this is actually one of the main variations. It's just I haven't covered this variation that much in my joseki lectures. Against this variation, what I said in my joseki video is to sorry, it's not to play out like this. So first of all, let's say why white cannot play out like this. The reason is because black captured a corner, and when white ladders, black can actually run, and then this ladder is working for black. So this variation does not work for white. Now if white cuts on the outside, then black can Atari, and then we are back to the double Hane variation. This is a playable, this is one of the main variations as well. It's very simple. So if you want to transfer back to the double Hane variation, you can just go ahead, push, and remember to cut on the outside. The main variation is for white to push, and then push on the third line. After this, white is going to cut at b6. Now this time black cannot choose the previous variation. The reason being that comparing to the double Hane variation, white was able to get exchange at d6 versus the c7, which is a very favorable exchange for white. So this is not acceptable for black. So the correct variation is for black to protect the corner, and then white now has a Tsuji. When black turns, white's gonna block, and then black finishes the variation with a turn here. The reason white did not choose this variation in the actual game is he find it very difficult to actually expand towards the right side. If you just expand like this, this is not a big moyo, so black can actually flip Atari at c9, and then there's not much to build over here. If white extends at c9, this is even worse, because now black is able to take the crucial move, not only expand himself but limit white, right? So this kind of move is always an indication that something went wrong for you. If your opponent was able to find such a bright move, it's usually an indication of, you did not plan out your opening very well. So maybe the better variation is actually for white to take this and let black Atari. Black will have a very solid corner, and then two other very solid corners over here. And the moyo over here is just not very big. So that's probably why in the actual game, white decided to choose a variation that I have not presented in my joseki video. So against this variation of black Hanes, white is going to push and cut this time. Now this time, black cannot just Atari because because after this, the exchange of c2 and b2, it's a horrible exchange for black, right? So black probably lost about, I would say, 10 points because of that exchange alone. So that's not acceptable. So when white cuts over here, black needs to connect, and now white can just extend out. Since the ladder does not work, black's all squeezed into this corner. So this is a terrible result. And that's why, so this is a variation that we haven't seen before. Now we're putting this into context as well. So sometimes you don't have to push, and if you think the two main variations do not work for you, you can choose to hane over here. This is your third choice. Against this move, black followed up by pushing on top. Now this time remember that white can definitely not push and cut because black can just capture here. Now compared to the previous variation, black saved a stone at b2, right? So this does not work for white. So when this situation happens, what white needs to do is to actually tanuki like what white did in the actual game. The next move, black decides to hop out at f6, which is a local recommendation by AI. The reason, so at first glance, I was really confused about why this move is important, but it turns out to be a very influential move that has a lot of value towards the outside. So let's say, for example, black just approaches. White can actually take this move and completely regain influence towards the right side. So if black hanes, white can just connect. Now we can see this part starts to become territory for white. And then black is left with a lot of weaknesses, as we can see here. That is why the f6 is something that I learned that does not seem to have a lot of value, is actually the best move that AI recommended. Next move, white decided to shoulder hit. So white is not really worried too much about this group because it's very flexible. Against this, black decides to hane, and white extends himself out. Now after this move, this group needs to be taken care of. And now black starts an attack on white. In the next move, it shows Ding Hao style. The idea of this is saying, look, I'm going to grab the profits on top, and then whatever happens here, I will be able to deal with it, right? I'm strong enough to deal with the problems over here. Black pushes up, and then white extends up. And instead of directly attacking white, black decided to shoulder hit. So the reason black did not forge an attack is because if black attacks, white's gonna play this one. After this exchange, if black decided to Atari here, white can Atari on the bottom, and then any move would work. So white is completely safe over here. Now, if black extends down, white can just play out the f5. The correct move is for black to try to capture the two stones, but white's going to refuse that. Black extends, and then white connects. And finally, these guys needs to be safe, so another Atari is needed. White can now make a two-space extension. And now, as we can see, white successfully sacrificed his burden and transferred the profits over here and successfully hurt the K3 stone. The outcome of this exchange is actually pretty awesome for white. So this is a slightly favorable position for white, because black's territory is all concentrated in the corner over here. So basically the point I'm making here is that white has ways to deal with this group. No matter how black attacks, white has some sort of way of making a trade and then still end up being on top. So instead of attacking, black decided to shoulder hit. After an exchange, white decides to wedge, and then this is where I learned something. Is that usually what I would have played is to Atari, and then we figure out what we need to do. Likely I will play another move, but I really need to see, right? But a lot of times I would just play out like this. But I guess the black player Park Jung-hwa decided to yeah, I guess so. Decided Tanuki, which is kind of amazing. Is that in this local variation you can actually Tanuki here. I don't recommend this to my viewers. I'll just briefly explain the idea. The idea of Tanukiing is to keep the possibility of Ataring on top as well as Ataring on the bottom to yourself. So depending on what's happening on the board over here, sometimes we can choose the Atari at C12. So this is a very advanced and professional idea of, this idea of sort of keeping variations, right? Keeping possibilities locally and then start a fight or an invasion somewhere else. Anyway, it takes time to appreciate. So at this point, white decided to say, I will no longer give you that possibility of keeping your choices. Now I'm gonna play here, and then you'll figure out what to do with this stone. Black plays the small knight, and then white blocks. Black extends up, white connects. Now black plays a very natural and comfortable two-space extension. This is if you're in single digit Q level, you probably immediately spot this beautiful move, right? You probably be able to play this by yourself. It's just looking very natural, gaining a lot of territory. In the meantime, slowly starting to pressure white's 3 stones. So a very beautiful opening by both players. Both players have studied AI very heavily, so at this point the win rate is still about like 50-50. Pretty much no mistakes, and we get to see some ideas as well as new variations for the 3-3 joseki. You might have a small question about why black did not play this. Well, in fact, this is also playable, right? It seems like black invaded white more. But in fact, later on, white has this local variation. So since I have a bit more time, I'll just quickly go through this variation. I think I see this quite a bit in amateur level games, and there's a vital point for this shape. When black pushes, we can just block and cut black like this, and we can gain the territory back. So the sliding with the big knight works. The problem is that later on we don't know who's gonna get the f18. So if black wants to fix locally, black needs to come back and fix. And now black's able to gain more territory. But the probability is a 50-50 thing. So white can also later on grab this very big endgame move. So the small knight is not necessarily worse than the big knight for that reason. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed this Go opening video, and subscribe if you don't want to miss out on the new ones, and I'll see you guys next time.